Welcome to Conversations with Catalyst. Today I have with me Anita McKenna. Welcome, Anita.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. I'm really excited to speak with you today.
Fantastic. Can you please fill us in? Who is Anita McKenna and how did you end up in the world of coaching?
Yeah, so I kind of came into coaching a few years ago when my life was kind of going through a real transition. So 15 years ago, a bit of a long story, go back a bit, I became a counsellor. And back then as well, my life was going through quite a big transition. There'd been quite a lot of trauma went on. It was back in 2008 when we had the big, massive financial crisis happened. And I was made redundant. I'd just had my gorgeous baby daughter. I was left on my own with her. My life kind of got turned upside down, and it was a really awful place for me to be. So I actually went and got counselling for myself. And as a part of that process, I was encouraged to go and do some counselling training, which was really going to be helpful for me to kind of learn more about myself, learn more about my emotions, because I didn't really do emotions before that. And then I trained and qualified as an integrative counsellor, which just means I use different types of counselling in my work. And that was really amazing. The work that I do with my clients is fabulous. I love the counselling work that I do. But then, like I say, it was actually about 5 years ago now. My daughter, who is very nearly 16 now, she was going into high school. And in the UK, high school is kind of from age 11. I know in the US it's slightly different ages. So she was going off into high school, and up to that point, I'd been very involved in her schooling. But suddenly, she was going off and kind of taking the next step in her life, and I felt like I was being a bit left behind. And so I chose to. I was kind of looking at outside counselling. What else can I do? What can I do to feel a bit more fulfilled in myself? Because I was feeling a bit sort of lost, without purpose. And I kind of came across coaching, and to a degree I'd been using coaching already in my counselling work, because the two are kind of so closely linked that there's obviously, definitely nuances either side, but the two are very closely linked. And so I went and got my coaching certificate and moved into transformational life coaching. So it's very much about kind of helping people to transform their life into the version of the life that they want to have, rather than kind of feeling stuck just getting through the life that they've had up till this point, sort of thing. So I mean, quite a long story really, from 15 years ago to here, but that's kind of what's got me to this place. So I am a transformational life coach and an integrative counsellor, and I use the skills of both of those in the work that I do, both in counselling and coaching, to kind of give my clients quite a unique blend of the different skills that I can bring into it, which I think enables clients to feel possibly a little bit safer, in the sense that on an emotional level, that they know that I'm there to support them regardless of what's going on for them. I'm there to kind of take care of them. Yeah.
Yes, so tell me a little bit about how what you do has changed after you said you already were doing a bit of coaching with your counseling, and how is it different now that you have done the coaching certification and you brought that in as well?
So I think because previously I was practicing as a counsellor, so the focus has always been, and the way I kind of differentiate the two, certainly from a client perspective, is counselling tends to be about clients looking to move away from something
Mm,
that's happened to them, generally trauma, and trauma happens on all different levels, but clients tend to come to counselling because they want to move away from trauma, whereas coaching is much more about, they want to get to a place, they want to go somewhere. So obviously, as we go through a counselling process, they heal from the trauma, which means that they're actually ready to start looking at what their next steps are. They're looking at moving towards something. Not all clients, it doesn't always work that way. Whereas with my coaching, when I work exclusively as a coach, then I'm very much focused on what's happening here today, where are we today, and where do you want to get to? Always looking at the goal, always looking at the outcome, what you want to achieve from coaching. So it's much more forward thinking. So although I will, to a degree, look backwards at what got you to here, we're not going to do any real work in that space. We're going to be very much looking at what got you here, but more importantly, how are we going to move forwards, and where do you want to go to move forwards?
yeah, that's definitely because I have a psychology degree and I've had psychological counseling as well as my own coaches. And
Yeah.
that's really a good explanation from you of what I've seen. The difference being the difference that I've seen is, psychological counseling is more around getting you from, -10 up to 0 to neutral.
Yes.
And then coaching is about getting you from 0 to I guess in the Maslow's hierarchy of need, you're getting to your full potential with the
Absolutely.
coaching. And I think that's what's often missing is psychologists will be like, okay, you're all better now. Don't need to see you anymore. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, but where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it's kind of almost that rehabilitation part, isn't it? So you get well,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
it's kind of, now what do I do now? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess in the last couple of decades, psychological research has been going into, that's termed positive psychology.
Yeah.
Not just getting out of mental illness, but getting into you can be. But it
Yes.
hasn't really, I find that it's mostly coaches that are on the forefront of actually doing the work there so far. Yeah, good.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and it's I think the US is much further ahead than
And
we are
my
in the
accent is
UK.
American, but I've lived in Australia for the last 18 years, just to
Oh, right,
let you
okay.
know. But yeah,
Yeah, to
I
be fair,
was in
I'm not
America
sure
for
where
my first 25 years.
right. So I'm not sure where Australia's up to with coaching and kind of taking those steps forwards. I think here in the UK, it's taken us quite a long time to accept counselling, even that therapy side of
Yeah.
things. So we are a little further behind on coaching, life coaching, and kind of
Mm,
being quite deliberate about how we move forwards. So yeah, I think the US is definitely further ahead than we are in it being a thing, even here in the UK. When we talk about coaches, we think about a football coach
yeah.
rather than somebody who's actually kind of doing life coaching. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Anita, this is a question I've been asking people. It was a question that was asked of me probably 15 years ago or something by a coworker. She said, we were in customer service and we were just between customers. And she just said, if you could bring more of any one thing into the world, what would it be? And that
Mm,
really struck me as a good way to think a little bit about your purpose in life. So, Anita,
yeah.
if you could bring more of any one thing into this world, what would it be?
I think for me, it's kind of got to be all around self acceptance and self worth. I think
Mm,
as human beings, and I guess this has become more over the past sort of probably 100 years or so, particularly as we get into possessions and material things and seeing what other people have, that thing of keeping up with the Joneses, we are
mm,
so quick to not accept what we have or who we are is good enough. I think there can be some societal conditioning in that. I think, how we're brought up or how our parents bring us up feed into that so that we spend so much of our lives trying to be better than we are, trying to, achieve more. And I know for me, certainly, this was kind of my earlier life, 100% is I kept believing that if I got that thing, that would make me be happier. But actually, it
yeah,
never did. It never, nothing ever filled the hole that was inside me because I wasn't accepting of myself as I was. And I think that's one of the things that if we can, just as human beings, accept ourselves and kind of have that level of self worth in ourselves that we are worthy of love and acceptance exactly as we are, who we are today, we are worthy already. If we can have that acceptance, that would make us feel so much more content and not looking externally, looking for that external validation is kind of I know for me, definitely looking for that external validation was exactly what drove me, but it never fulfilled, and it never does, because external thing can always be removed. Whereas if we have our own internal validation, we accept ourselves for who we are. And that's not to say that we don't ever want to make things be different, or we don't ever want to improve our lives in any way. But if we deny who we are, if we don't accept who we are, then it doesn't matter what we achieve, it will never feel good enough. So for me, yes, self-acceptance, self-worth, being in that space of finding ways to accept yourself exactly as you are today, so that then you can move forwards and feel good enough in everything that you do. Does that make sense? Does that kind of
yeah.
answer the question? Yeah.
No, it really does. So self acceptance, and then I guess moving. So that's If you could bring more of any one thing into the world, it would be self-acceptance. So with that in mind, what would you say is the core philosophy behind your coaching, and how does that translate into tangible results for your clients?
So for me, and it very much is that around that kind of, like I said before, that excuse me, most people or so many of us are conditioned from childhood to kind of fit in. You go to school and you've got to wear a uniform, you've got to conform, you've got to do what you're told to do, which means that if you don't want to do that, or if it doesn't feel right to you, we learn to adapt ourselves to fit in. Which means that if it doesn't feel right, there's something disingenuous in that for ourselves, for each other's. So for me, my kind of core philosophy is all about, allowing people to be exactly who they are and kind of finding that acceptance of themselves in wherever they are, kind of starting at where they are today. Like I say, absolutely looking for, looking at your goals and looking at where you want to go, but it's that analogy of, kind of setting the sat nav, isn't it? If we set the sat nav to go somewhere but we don't know where we're starting from, actually the sat nav hasn't got a clue where to go. So by not accepting ourselves in this space means that we can't really direct ourselves forwards because we don't know where we're starting from. So it is very much about allowing people to kind of take care of themselves, prioritize their own needs so that they are looking after themselves in a way that allows them to feel that they're important enough to kind of take care of themselves. I don't have a succinct little phrase that I probably could do with getting around the kind of the philosophy side of it for me, for my coaching. But it always comes back to that thing of helping people to kind of love, accept themselves exactly as they are today, so that they can then move forwards into the version of themselves that they would like to grow into.
When you were explaining that, I was thinking, if you were using a sat nav and you had this destination in mind, you think of yourself as someone who can't drive, but
Mm.
then you're not going to be able to. So you might have
Yeah.
a goal of where you want to get to, but you aren't a proficient person to drive the car to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I
Um,
think that's very true, that so many of us don't feel that we are good enough to make those decisions. We struggle to make the decisions or to feel confident in the choices that we make. Whereas actually we are exactly, as we are the person who is the most best informed. Unfortunately, we can't always tune in to what our authentic self is saying, and that can be the difficult part, which I guess is probably the work that I do with clients, is helping people to properly tap into their authentic self so that they can hear their own voice rather than all of that conditioned voice, that those external voices that come in, critical parent and society, telling us what we should be doing. Actually being able to listen to yourself and listen to what you genuinely want for yourself can really support you in having the belief that you can make the right choices to support yourself to get to the places that you want to go to.
so then, can you tell me a success story about a client who started off in that place, maybe where they didn't quite accept themselves, or just tell me, I guess, any success story about a client of yours where your
Mm.
coaching methods made a big difference in where they started out and where they got to.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a lady I was working with. We began working together towards the end of last year. And at the point that she came to me, she was feeling really quite sort of lost, unfulfilled. Truthfully, life felt quite pointless. Without some kind of intervention, that there was a prospect there of her heading towards, not wanting to live a life anymore. She just felt it was completely pointless. There was no joy
Mm.
at all in her. And we started working together, and there was just some really basic stuff, like she really didn't like the house that she lived in, but she'd convinced herself that she had to stay there because she'd only been there for 2 years now. Mortgage deal wasn't up for another year, and so she didn't have a choice. There was no option for her. That she had a very challenging relationship with both her parents, specifically her mum was more so. Mum had quite a lot of narcissistic tendencies, which meant that she'd never really had the validation from her parents growing up. Work wasn't great. I mean, she had quite a successful job in finance, but she wasn't particularly enjoying the work that she was doing. So life all around felt quite sort of empty and shallow, quite brittle. Friendships weren't going as she'd have liked them to be doing. But because she'd got herself into a place of she wasn't really speaking with anybody, she wasn't communicating much, she was so stuck in the beliefs that she can't do anything, that she really struggled to kind of begin to make any choices, because obviously life was where it was, and so she felt she had no ability to make good choices for herself going forwards. So as we were working together, we began, I mean, even just questioning the belief that she had to stay in a house. And when she looked into it, she went and got some information. Actually, it was feasible for her to sell her house and move into a different house. The financial implication of that wasn't anything like as bad as she'd kind of told herself. Something as simple as Christmas. So she was feeling that she had to go and spend Christmas with her parents because she had nothing else planned. And that filled her with dread. The thought of spending the whole of Christmas with her parents really filled her with dread. So we looked at what she'd done historically, and she'd previously gone away for Christmas. Financially, that wasn't an option this year. So we looked at what other options there were available to her. And again, it was just opening herself up to having choices, being able to look beyond the one thing that was stuck in front of her that she really didn't want to look at, that she really didn't want to do. And she was able to go and spend Christmas with a friend and had the best Christmas ever. She had an amazing Christmas that was, you know, really lovely. She felt very fulfilled and very kind of nerd space because she was in a space of love rather than the fear was being in this space with her parents that was going to be very critical and she would be on edge and, you know, it would be a really harsh experience. She actually had a lovely experience with her friend that was just filled with love for her. And then even just looking at the friendships, she'd kind of got herself into the belief that her friends didn't care about her anymore because they weren't contacting her as much as she'd have liked. And we kind of just unpicked that a little bit and kind of looked at some of the beliefs that were going on for her, you know, these limiting beliefs that she had going on, and the belief that everybody should message her and she didn't need to message anybody outwardly. So when she was able to actually message her friends outwardly, actually they came back and she realized that she had been holding herself back in all of that, that she was the one that was kind of putting those walls up against people because she just wasn't able to look beyond what was immediately in front of her. When she was able to reach out to some friends, actually, like say, you know, she spent Christmas with one of her friends, and they were good, solid friendships. They were different. Some of them were more in depth than others. But when she'd originally come to me, she felt that actually she didn't really have any worthwhile friendships. When she was able to look beyond that initial unhelpful thought, she was able to see that actually she had a lot of friends, but she'd closed herself off from them because she wasn't in such a good space in her head. She kind of closed herself off from them. So ultimately, she'd gone from that space of feeling that life was pointless, that there was no joy, that almost she was just waiting to die. And, you know, she wasn't an old woman, she was only in her 50s. She'd gone from that space to kind of everything, her whole life flipping a full 180. You know, she was moving house, she'd kind of reconnected with all her friends. She felt fulfilled, she felt positive, she felt life was worth living again. And, you know, to kind of see that transformation is amazing. It's, you know, such a beautiful thing to witness with clients.
Yeah. Sounds like she had real blinders on and had real tunnel vision where she just didn't see how anything be different as far as like where she was living or, you know, what was happening with her friends or whatever. And just through her conversations with you and obviously work on her limiting beliefs and everything, she was able to see all these other options that she had and choose something that she choose a life that she liked a lot better than the one that she was living.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing, is those limiting beliefs, that they're sneaky little buggers because we don't see them all the time. And, you know, that they're hidden from our own view a lot of the time. So actually having an external person talking through some of this stuff can be so helpful to begin to help you to see some of them. Because like I say, we just don't know that they're there. We don't know her belief 100% around Christmas was she had to go and spend Christmas with her parents. But she was the one that had imposed that. Nobody else had put that on her, but she couldn't see anything different.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What is your strategy for helping clients to overcome that self-doubt when they don't when they don't believe in themselves?
I think it's really beginning to kind of reflect on what's got them to that place that they don't believe that they can make good choices, so what's got them to that self-doubt, where's the information come from? And just beginning to challenge that even, is that true? Is it a truth, or is this, again, is it a limiting belief? By helping people to see what's current and what's currently hidden from them. I know there's a gorgeous quote from Oprah Winfrey, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, a coach helps you to see the higher version of yourself that you can't see yourself. It's something like that. And it's seeing that, helping you to see the things that you're not able to see for yourself. And it's for a massive variety of reasons. It can be, like I say, social condition. It can be just the life that you live has been very conformative, so you just conform and that's what you do. And it might be the work that you do means that you have to be really quite conformative. That doesn't mean that as a human being you have to move away from anything that brings you joy or pleasure. And I think so often people kind of do, especially in adulthood, we think it should all be so serious, and we take ourselves so seriously. So that self-doubt then means that if it's something that's fun, well, we shouldn't be doing it because we're grown-ups and we're adults and we shouldn't be doing those things. It's almost a little bit frivolous. But helping people to see, actually, the purpose of life isn't to endure it to the end. Actually the purpose of life is to live it, to enjoy it, to have those moments of, imagining being a 7-year-old again, and the joy of rolling through a field of dandelions, those kind of things. You're really feeling some of that stuff. I think unfortunately we get so much of that knocked out of us when we start having life to deal with. You've got bills, you've got mortgage, you've got a job to do, you've got to be up on a Monday morning, that kind of stuff, that we struggle to connect in with those things. So helping people to reconnect, again, it comes back to that authentic self. What does bring you joy in your life? And so therefore, what can you do to kind of get rid of some of those limiting beliefs that stop you saying you're worthy of those things, helping you to challenge those doubts, to actually go and do the things that you really enjoy, that do fulfill you.
So if someone listening has some of those limiting beliefs, how would they go about helping themselves get rid of some of those limiting beliefs?
Well, one of the things I say so much is, if a friend was telling you this thing, would you agree with them, or would you tell them actually no, it's okay for them to do that thing? And I think that can be such an easy thing, that we all have the ability to do that. We all have the ability to kind of put this situation onto a friend. Would we tell them no, they can't go and do that thing? Or would we become, why can't you just go and do it, go and enjoy it? And that is the simplest way. It's not always the follow through on that isn't always as straightforward, but even just beginning to challenge that belief, because again, so often we don't believe it's a limiting belief, we believe it's a fact, so we can't even begin to challenge it. And that's the hardest part, is beginning to challenge it. So when we have a situation where we are telling ourselves we can't do something, it's beginning, like I say, transferring that over to a friend. If they were in that situation, what would we be saying to them? So that we're able to begin to get a challenge in there, but we get the awareness that this is us saying it, rather than this being an actual factor and we can't do something. I do have I'm going to literally have it stuck on my wall in front of me, a sticky note that says, I can't equals BS, because
Yeah.
there is nothing that we can't in reality. Whenever you hear yourself saying I, check in with it, because the likelihood is that's you stopping yourself, rather than a genuine you can't.
Yeah, I like that. That's also how I teach self-compassion. Is I don't come. There's Jesus' golden rule: treat other people the way you want to be treated. But the platinum
Mm.
rule is treat other people the way they want to be treated. But my golden rule, I guess, or whatever, for people to have self-compassion is treat yourself the way you would treat your best friend. So if your best friend
Absolutely.
was in
Yeah.
this situation that you're in, would you be saying to them, "You're an idiot. Why are you always doing things? Why are you always messing things up like that?" Blah, blah, blah. No,
Yeah.
you would be speaking kindly
Never
and
say that.
compassionately
Yeah.
to them. Yeah,
Yeah. You'd never
we
say
say
such harsh
that kind of thing
words.
to ourselves all the time, but you'd never
Mm.
say that to a friend. Yeah, treat
Yeah.
yourself the same way you treat your best friend.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, what's one piece of wisdom, Anita, that you find yourself consistently giving out to anyone who will listen?
One of the things that I think has been most empowering for me is acknowledging the choice that I have in my life. And they're not always easy choices. The choices can be, get up and go to work, or don't and get no money, and then I've got no money to pay my bills. And that sounds like a really blasé one, but it's recognizing we have choice in pretty much every action that we take on a daily basis. Quite often we feel stuck. We feel we've got to do stuff that can feel really quite disempowering. We get stuck in that belief that I've got to do that thing. But acknowledging we have a choice and being able to be really present in that choice helps us to feel more empowered, helps us to feel a bit more in control of what's going on in a world where we are in reality very out of control of a lot of stuff that goes on. All we can control is our own internal kind of experience of these things. Feeling in control of some stuff that isn't comfortable, staying in a relationship because it's easier, or choosing to leave a relationship, we can make a choice in that, because having choice, having the awareness of a choice, helps us to, even if we're staying in, I've got clients that I've worked with, they stay in an abusive relationship because that's what feels most manageable for them in that moment. But acknowledging the choice that they're doing it out of choice rather than they've got to do it, just helps them to feel a bit more in control of a situation that actually feels quite out of control. So whenever you're in a place where things are feeling out of control, things are feeling that, you've got to do something, just begin to acknowledge the choice. The opposite side of the choice might not be something that you want to do, but you've got a choice to do that, So being able to acknowledge the choice can really help you to feel more empowered, more kind of in control of what's going on in your life.
So notice that you have a choice. Good. We've got a few messages from listeners here. I'll just play them and we'll see if we have a response to any of them.
Yeah, sure.
This one comes from Kat.
Good morning, guys. I hope you guys are all doing well. When I hear people say I can't, I think it comes from a place of fear. They say they can't because they don't see themselves. You have to be able to see yourselves in that position or in that spot, whatever it is. But it's fear. It's fear that stops people from doing the things that they want to do, but think they can't.
Yeah. Do you have a response to that, Anita?
Yeah, I would probably agree with that, it is most likely fear-based, that I think, as Kat said there, that you can't see yourself in that outcome. Or it might even be that if you choose to do the thing, then you'll be going against other people's wishes. So, and that feels unsafe, which obviously again comes
Yeah.
back to fear. But it's not feeling safe to achieve the outcome can feel really
Yeah.
difficult. So yeah, I'd agree that there is a lot of fear in that. And I think that's something
Yeah.
that can be really interesting. Is I'm a huge believer of, we act from fear or love, or fear or
Yeah.
faith.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Fear or love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's kind of having that belief that, and this is very much, an inside job, a belief of yourself, so can you have faith of a good outcome? And again, I have, I've got lots up all my office at home, and I have one there that says, have faith in the best outcome rather than fear of the worst. And it is living in that space of having faith that, things can go well, things can be good for you.
Yeah. Excellent. And then we've got two messages here from Sash McFlash. We'll see what these are.
You sound like a BBC documentarian. What's really missing in that specific quote, do unto others, from Matthew, is what preeminates it is the idea of sacrifice. It's like you're going out of your way to, you want to treat this guy like an asshole because he's treating you like an asshole, but you're going out of your way for the higher will. And that's what's, I think, the higher meaning and the higher goal of it gets underwhelmed and underspoken.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, not a lot to add to that.
No. Excellent. Well, thank you, Anita. I've just going to finish up with two last little questions here. These two are really, I've stolen these from Mike Kaplan in his podcast, Broccoli and Ice Cream. But he asks these at the end of his podcast, and I love them. They're basically just two questions to make sure that we've covered everything that we need to in this conversation. So if the answer to either of these questions is no, perfectly fine. But if you've got something that we've missed here, then please chime in with that as well. So the first one, is there anything that you didn't get to say as much as you wanted to because we went off on a tangent?
No, I don't think there is. I think we've covered a lot of what I wanted to say, yeah.
Excellent. And is there anything that I didn't even know to bring up, because obviously you know yourself a hell of a lot better than I know you, Anita. Is there anything that I didn't even know to bring up that you feel would be a glaring omission when it comes to a survey of the life and work of Anita McKenna?
Nothing specific for you to bring up. I think one of the things that I always kind of refer to is that I am probably my greatest testimony. I've done the work that I now do with clients, and I've gone through the process. And I think that's something that so often is important for clients, specifically the work I do. It's so important that the clients understand that I've been through not everything that they've been through, of course not, but my own experience is what's kind of driven me to do the work that I do. That I definitely have had a very discontented younger life. I have done a lot of work on myself. I've invested heavily, sort of financially and time wise, energy wise, in choosing to live the life that I do live now. And I think that can be really important for people to know that I haven't just read a few books, done a certification, and say I'm kind of some master of it or something. I'm not a guru in any way, shape, or form, but I live what I teach, if that makes sense. And I think that can be really helpful for people to understand that I've been through some really challenging times, and it's only because of the work that I've done that I'm where I'm at. I certainly wasn't born this way. I've worked at it. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Good. So is there anything else you wanted to share about those challenging times that you've been through?
No, I mean, I touched on it earlier that 15 years ago my life was catastrophically turned upside down. It was a very difficult time. Like I say, had my daughter, her dad left, I got made redundant, I ended up surrendering my home, had to move back to my hometown as a single parent, living on benefits in a little flat, feeling very sorry for myself. And it's funny because I had all of my material external validation taken away from me, but actually it was the most transformational thing that could have ever happened to me. I am so grateful, and I know that sounds really weird, but I was so grateful that happened, because it allowed me to kind of reset myself. It allowed me to start again and be, I believe personally that the universe course corrected me, that I was going on the wrong path, and the universe said, right, you're not listening to the subtle hints, so I'm going to do something quite dramatic for you. And I'm so much more fulfilled. I feel so much happier. I love my life. It's not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but I love my life now, and I love that I get to share that with other people. That I'm very open on social media. That I share my my highs and my lows, because I think it's really important. Again, it's coming back to that authentic voice that we have. That being really authentic and sharing, being transparent with life isn't perfect, but I choose to live it in a way that feels good for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anita. So the point of this podcast is for anyone who wants to learn and listen and learn anything that they can on self-development, hearing me chat with all different kinds of coaches and other people who are catalysts for people to make change. But it's also for people who are ready for a coach, that when they hear that person, they say that I need Anita in my life to help me move forward. So for those listeners today who are saying, I need Anita to help me move forward, how do they find you?
So I'm on all the socials, Anita McKenna UK. So you will find me there.
Anita McKenna UK. And that's ANITAMCKENA UK.
So no dots, no dashes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on, Anita. And if anyone needs to find me, you can find all my links, including links to every episode of this podcast, at jeremywest.net. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again soon, Anita.
Thank you. You take care now.